Hello, everybody, and welcome back. So I have all my stuff set up today. The one I did the other day, I didn't have a lot of my stuff up. And I had some drops or some audio stuff going on. I don't know if that was on my side or Twitch side. So I wanted to pull everything up today so I could get a better look at it and see if I have any issues on my end. So I think I know what we're going to talk about. I'm not going to have the chat up in the beginning. I might pull it. I'll try to check it intermediately to see if I have any questions or anything anyone wants to tangent and talk about. But unless I see anything there, I'm just going to kind of go with whatever I get. So today I kind of want to go back. It is an absolutely beautiful day outside too. So hopefully, I'm kind of hoping most people are going to just watch this later and are outside, especially if you're on the Eastern Seaboard, because it's really pretty here today anyway. Eastern Seaboard in the United States. Beautiful day. So I think we're going to talk a little bit today about dreams. And every time I try to do one on dreams, the whole stream always goes a little haywire. Like at one point the video didn't show, the audio can get a little wacky. So, and I don't really know why that is. I guess I know why that is. Something about that state that tends to make things look a little weird, I guess. So anyway, I'm going to keep an eye on how it goes as I talk about the dream state, how we can enhance our connection in the dream state, and exactly what the dream state is, and debunking myths about what it is not. Well, that's put that a different way. The dream state is certain things in certain states of consciousness. So if I'm in a higher state of consciousness, and let's say someone who's really in their human programming, and it's not really a judgment, this is just to kind of explain it, I'm going to have more access in those states to do more things. I'll have more access to see. I'll have more access to, I don't know, interact. I personally have not really seen too much of a tie into lucid dreaming and how, as far as being able to lucid dream and your state of consciousness. Okay, so I haven't really seen a tie in that I'm more lucid. I have had points where I do lucid dreaming, and we're going to talk a little bit about lucid dreaming because that's always a topic people enjoy talking about. So I can't say that the more conscious I've got, now I interact in the dream state. Kind of shifts in a different way. But I do still have lucid dreams, and when I am lucid in the dream, I am more lucid to get to questions I want answered. So we will put it like that. I can't say it's increased how many times I wake up in the dream. So if anyone doesn't know what lucid dreaming is, it's basically when you wake up in the dream, know it's a dream, and start interacting more consciously in that space. So you're in the space. If there are people there, you can ask them questions that might relate back to this physical realm. So you can jump through different places, fly around, but you're more conscious you're doing it and that you're dreaming. So if you have never dreamed, I'm going to give you a couple quick tips to dream that might kind of help you. One, set up a marker in your dream state that tells you it's a dream. That can be seeing people in reality that are deceased that are in that state. You can tell yourself, if I see someone who's not alive in this physical reality here, I'll know it's a dream and I'm going to wake up. You can plant what you want it to be. You can say, if I see an American flag in the dream, it's my marker, then I'm going to wake up. So you can kind of plant markers in your dreams. I've said before, I have markers in my dream where if I see it, I kind of know what it means. I understand if I see certain things in my dream that means, like if I see someone with their back to me in a dream, I understand that means the reality is not going right now. Person's back is to me, which is they're not open to a reality. It doesn't even matter what context that reality is. So if I see different realities that are going to come in and I have a dream of that person with his back to me or her back to me, I know it's not going right now. I know that reality is kind of put on pause. So there are certain, and I get markers in the waking state too, but I want to keep this today to more of the dream state. At least in my initial 20-minute monologue, that's where we're gonna stick, just to the dream state, because I feel like I'm gonna keep looking down to see how I'm doing on my stats, and I still look good on my end. So okay, be agitated when I can see that it looks like it might have done something there. If I play this back and it looks like it's still having a problem. Okay, I've had to learn quite a bit about how to check that stuff over the last couple months. But okay, back to lucid dreaming. Set up a marker in the dream so that it tells you to wake up. Some people are a little more innate with this than other people. And I don't feel like it has much to do with whether you're uber conscious or not conscious. I haven't seen that correlation. So if anyone in the chat wants to say they've seen that, I'm interested to know about it. I personally haven't felt like it is. I just feel like when I do wake up, I have more knowledge of current happenings in this reality. So it's a more super consciousness when I do it, but I don't do it that often, to be honest. I'm not a big dreamer. They are kind of fun when you do, because you can kind of you can start really getting to maybe some questions answered or what's going on. So set up the marker, the one thing, and two, try it when you are just waking up in the morning, like kind of that half asleep, half awake state. Or when you're, I got another way you can do it too. When you're going to sleep at night. So that just beginning, just ending, beginning your sleep state, ending your sleep state. It's called the hyponagalgic state. It's a very powerful state. You're in a kind of breaking into different brainwave states there. And I have found, I definitely have my more lucid dreams in that state. And when you have your more lucid dreams in that state, I tend to like that kind of can open you up to actually what you're going to be able to see. I still take anything I see in that state a lot more serious than I take other dreams. Usually my really big, we're going to kind of tip you off something that's coming, happens in that state. So pay attention to those two things. And the third thing is, if you can do like a semi-lucid state where you can use like a shamanic, I used to do it with shamanic drumming because I took a dream class and that's what he used. It doesn't have to be shamanic drumming. You could try different dreaming meditations. It depends on what's going to really work for you. But in the shamanic state drumming, it just changes the kind of the brain waves, and you can just almost kind of relax out, and you can kind of go into sort of an awake state, but you're kind of a little in and out. But you're not really super conscious, but you're not asleep either. So it's not like true lucid dreaming where you're actually asleep, but it can alter you enough to where you can get into a state of seeing different things, understanding things. If you have a question, different people you do want to connect with. A lot of people would do this when they want to connect with someone who's passed away, because the dream state is a place where the dead do tend to come back. A lot of people want to know why that is. You know, if you'd asked me that question 6 years ago, I'd give you a different answer than I would give you today. They're basically just energy imprints of yourself. They're more of aspects of yourself, because no one could be in your life unless they're an aspect of you. So you're really kind of seeing an aspect of yourself, just like you saw it when they were physically in front of you. Now you're just seeing that in your dream state. They still might take on the same form. A lot of times they'll de-age, because I always feel like it kind of makes you feel a little more comfortable when you see them de-age, especially if they died when they were older. You can kind of go back and forth how you see them. But just keep that in mind a little bit, that they're still you, but it's still going to give you the same closure sometimes if you would have seen them in your waking state. So I don't really know why we got on that, but someone to hear that who wants to. That's usually the biggest thing I get when people talk about dreaming. They want to talk to someone who's died. That is probably that, and precognitive dreaming, dreaming the future. Those are the two things that people want to get into their dream state that tends to jump out. You know, people who really want to be able to do that. So if you do want to talk to someone who's passed, first thing I'll always say with that is ask the question, just to ask to talk to them. Be open to answers in your waking and your dream state. Mine would come. Usually mine come in the waking state now, but I'm also super conscious when I'm awake. So just be aware of kind of where you are with the dreaming and just ask. You'll be surprised what happens if you just ask for certain things. People never want to really do that. They want to people don't want to ask because they don't want to see it. It's kind of like you don't want to ask the question. You don't want, what is that old saying? I started it and I lost it. Don't ask the question you don't want the answer to. It's very much the same for anytime you're getting into any of these endeavors, don't ask the questions you do not want the answers to. If you do not want the answer, don't open the box, because if you open the box, you're going to be surprised what you see and what you hear, because those states are very real. They're very visceral, really, when you get into them. They are the most powerful state you have, because no matter how conscious you are in the, oh, the cat again. Yes. No matter how conscious you are in, I guess that's where he's going to set. Of course, that's where he's going to set. Pardon the interruption. Okay. No matter where you set on, and I totally lost my train of thought. Damn. That's what happens. Okay. Come on. You can get your 2 minutes on film. Oh, you're so cute. Okay, go on. Okay. Where you set on that, whether you want to hear the answer or not, just be aware that sometimes we really don't want to hear the answer. And that's normally the block we have. Even when we kind of ask, we're kind of not ready. We're always going to be the slowdown. We are the slowdown across space and time. We always are. People say, why isn't that happening yet? It's always us. Something about us is why we're holding it back. And that can kind of rub people the wrong way when you say that why is it always us? But it really is always us. You know, it's always going to be us. It's always going to be us that slows it down. You can say, oh, I want this. But when you really get into that, close your eyes and say, oh, I want this, and watch what your body does. Watch if your body tightens up. Really be conscious of what your body's doing when you do that, because you might find out you really don't want it. You're not ready to hear it yet. You're not ready to see the person yet. And it doesn't matter if it's waking or dream. So just say you want to do it. Just really watch what your body does when you say that stuff. And that'll show you what you're clear, where you still got something about it that's not kind of ready to go there yet. So you can kind of learn to decode your body in that sense and understand, yeah, I still got something there. I'm not ready for that. We're always going to be the ones holding it up. And that's one thing. And that's not to kind of beat ourselves up about it, but just be conscious enough to know we're the reason why we might not be able to connect in. So dreaming with the dead, right? Ask the question, ask who you want to talk to, see what happens. Sometimes you might exactly not get that aspect of you. You might get something else. I would have usually given a totally different answer so many years ago, but the more you expand your consciousness, you start to see it in a different way. So now I probably do that a little differently than I used to. I did videos a long time ago about dreaming with the dead, and probably the answers I gave in those videos are not the answer I'd give now, but I put the videos up because someone might resonate with that answer, because that's where they are in their opening, they're expanding their consciousness state, and that's what they need to hear, because that's where they are. But once you get to different places, you're going to realize you're kind of in places with it, and you see it from different places. So I think that's probably going to cover lucid dreaming. It's a lot of fun when you figure out how to do it. It's like I said, it was never something I kind of went in to try to do, but it is kind of fun when you do it. But if you can't so much get it when you're sleeping yet, try it in that semi-awake state with some shamanic drumming. And that's probably easy to find on the internet. You can pretty much find anything on the internet. So ask a question and lay back and listen to the shamanic drumming and see what happens. Or whatever works for you. Some shamanic drumming didn't work for. I think they would say 20% it didn't work. It worked for me, so I don't know, but some people said it did work for them. So I guess it depends on, you know, how your brain waves work for you, because it's just going to try to shift you somewhere else. My guess is if you're trying too hard, nothing's going to really work, because none of this is about the human brain. So if you're trying to really work with it, it's not going to work anyway. You have to kind of let all that go and kind of fly by the seat of your pants on that. So next big thing, dreaming. Some people say they don't dream. A lot of people that are really in that 3D programming, when you're in that 3D human programming, you'll hear all the people say, dream I want to talk about dream, what do they call them? Dream dictionaries. I want to talk about that too. I hold that till I get finished with this one. People who don't dream. Dream drought people who say they don't dream. When you're in a third dimension level of consciousness, you don't have the access others do in their dream state. That a little bit earlier, you're just not going to have that access yet. Doesn't mean you won't get it. Everyone has the capability to do whatever they want to do, but in this moment, you don't have it yet. So a lot of times you are kind of doing more of the mundane day-to-day stuff when you're dreaming, but it's still very real things you're seeing. Doesn't matter what state you're in and what you have access to see, what you see is still real. It's still happening in a different reality. One you're not anchored in, that one that's not anchored here, so we feel like it's not real. It's still happening. You're still looking at different objects, still looking at different things. You just might not have the immediate access to some of the other stuff. Some of the really precognitive stuff, sometimes you still have the precognitive stuff, but you won't have the vision to see out years and years and years ahead. It kind of how much you have access to, what aspects you have access to tap into. I used to dream more about people who had passed away in this state when I was in I'm going to say lower, just where I was 4, 5, 6 years ago, even probably 15 years ago. I've always been a pretty active dreamer. But they were still just aspects of me, but they weren't the highest aspects of me. So you don't really tap into higher aspects of you in the dream state until you're at a certain level of consciousness to see that, because you don't have that long, you don't have so much to bridge. To kind of think about it like that. If those states are up here and your physical body's density is down here and you become conscious, you pull your body up with it, you raise your consciousness and raise your body frequency up here, you don't have as far to go to get there, right? You don't have as far to go to get there. So if you don't have as far to go to get there, you can see more. So just keep that in mind too. It's not that you don't have access to, you don't have access to it yet. And I would always put a yet behind everything. Anything I say on this stream, just because you can't do it yet or can't do it, you just can't do it yet. You keep working on expanding your consciousness, you'll learn to do it. You don't have to learn to do it. You just start to do it. And that's when it gets a little freaky. When you start seeing stuff, like you will see stuff years out with people you don't even know yet, but you might know them, like you've seen them. You might know of them if they're maybe on YouTube or on, who knows, you know, we'll just say they're famous, right? So you might have seen them, you know them, and you see yourself having a lot of realities with people you don't even know. You're like, I don't even know how that's going to even happen. And it could be years and years out before it actually gets anchored in here. Someone once told me you're kind of teeing the reality. I'm teeing the reality up. That's what I'm doing. I'm teeing it up, you know. It's not here yet, but you kind of open up the portal to it, and it might take a lot of things for you to get to the frequency where that reality is. And that's another thing we have to remember about the dream state. You're seeing frequencies your body is not at yet, because the only thing you can hit it with is your consciousness. Same thing happens in meditation. And when you do these lucid dreaming exercises, you are hitting a frequency your physical body's not at. You're always going to be able to hit higher when you're asleep, because your DNA, your human DNA is not in play. You can expand out more. Your brainwave state's different, whether you're in a theta, a delta, whether you're getting to a gamma brainwave state. Your brainwave states shift. You're not in that busy day-to-day stuff. So you're always going to be seeing something higher than you're at, because this is a good way to remember it. If your body was in that frequency, it would literally be happening here. If it's not happening here and it's something you want to happen here, and you see it and you're like, wow, that's a cool reality. I want to do that. What the fuck was that I just saw? I want that one. It's like you're picking them off the dream tree. Oh, I want that reality. That one. Your physical body is not there. That is why it's not anchored here. So once you see it, you kind of then start the process of being able to anchor it in here. And that could take, usually it's 2 years. I would like to tell you it's quicker, because you have to kind of be in that consciousness for so long. Then your body has to raise its consciousness. You have to clear everything out of your reality that's not of that old, that's not of new consciousness, to get your body's vibration higher to anchor it in. You'll know you get it when you see it here. So that's how you'll know. Dream dictionaries. Don't pay a lot of attention to dream dictionaries unless they resonate with you. Just because you read a dream dictionary and it says, if you see a baby, it means new ideas. Bullshit. If it doesn't resonate with you, that's not what it means to you. Okay. That's someone's idea of what something meant, their interpretation of something. It does not mean anything unless it means something to you. If you read it and go, wow, that resonates, that's what it's trying to say. Because in the beginning, for me, my dreams were more symbolic. Once again, you're just not at a frequency to really understand it. My dreams now, I think, are more, it's kind of like messages in a bottle. I think when you're really first opening up in that state, you don't really understand what you're looking at, in a sense. You don't really get it in a way, because you don't have the consciousness to hold the dream state when you wake up. That's why you forget them, because your consciousness in your dream state's here, your body's here, and you're gonna, as soon as you wake up, that's why a lot of people write them down first thing in the morning, because they still have a little bit of it in their mind, but you still can't remember the whole thing, because now you're third dimensional. You're in a human carbon body until you kind of start to shift that. You can't see it all. It's at a different frequency. You can't even remember it because it's completely gone. I will find that I will remember them when something happens here, because it's the frequency now here, and then I remember the dream, because now I'm at the frequency to remember and tie the dream in. So you can always, I need to make sure I'm still look okay here. I according to my stats anyway, I still look okay. Because like I said, every time I do this one, chaos ensues. It's like chaos, what's it, Loki, the chaos god of mischief ensues every time I do this. Anything I'm dreaming goes funky. You're just not at that frequency, but when you hit the frequency, it starts coming in, and that's when you usually remember the dream. You remember what you need to, and if you don't remember it, it just wasn't important. So you start getting to a spot in your consciousness where you'll see a lot of stuff that makes no sense in any logical realm. You'll see yourself fighting in galactic wars. A lot of people see themselves killing people, and some stuff can get really, really distorted, and people get really bogged down on it. So a lot of stuff you don't remember because you're not really supposed to remember it. It wasn't important to remember it. It's still happening in a reality somewhere, and I always will say that realities will bleed over. They always bleed over. There are no closed systems. There's no closed reality. You might find the energies play out in reality in some way. It might not be you actually murdering a person, but you'll find that the realities kind of can play out in a certain way. The energy that you want to pay attention to. So that's going to lead me into the next thing. When do you pay attention to your dreams? Like, which ones do I need to pay attention to, and which ones shouldn't I pay attention to? If you have a big emotional, visceral reaction to the dream, I would give it a little bit of a looky-see, because it's definitely triggering something. A lot of times we'll dream about, I'm going to say always. I feel like you always sort of get a heads up to something coming that a human might not enjoy, and I'm going to use the word trauma, some type of traumatic event for your human, for your human aspect. You'll normally get that. You'll usually get a heads up on it. Everyone I've known that's had something happen, they kind of had a heads up on it that it was coming. And a lot of times that's so you can disconnect from the reality in your sleep state. So when it happens, you're not so corded and enveloped in it. You kind of have an opportunity to sort of start emotionally processing the loss, or what your human would view as a loss. What the soul's never going to see it as a loss, because it's just kind of a reality leaving, and we can't carry those old realities with us, because we talked before about raising our frequencies. A lot of that stuff is the denser frequency. The reality was the energy of the reality. If it was a relationship, the energy of the relationship, it has to be severed in a sense, so you can then move forward. That's just what it has to do. So, but you have a heads up. So if it's something you wake up and you saw something you really were not enjoying, sometimes it doesn't mean the reality is going to completely end and the person is going to die. Normally it doesn't mean that. Even if in the reality where you thought that's what happened. It's kind of like the death card in the tarot. Very rarely does it actually symbolize death. It usually just symbolizes it's going to shift. It's going to be a shift in it. You'll usually get a really good verification on that. The person you dream about you, something like you were moving away, or you whatever. I always like to catch up on what happened when someone dreams about me, just to see what I'm doing. Because they're going to see a different reality with me in it, and I like to see what I'm up to. I like to see what the other me's are doing in different realities. It's always kind of fun. So that's usually a different marker. You can check when people dream about you, even though I normally don't tell people when I dream about them unless it feels appropriate, because that's something that it's kind of something you learn the more access you get. We've talked a lot about not knowing too much about things that are going to come to pass. because the human wants to kind of use it as a look how special I am, look at all the stuff I can tap into. And there's a reason for that, because we, as humans, we never really feel that special till we can do something someone else can't do, or they can't do it yet. So we want to share it, right? We want to get in there and be the hero. That's just kind of, we just want to show what we can do. So that's usually, we don't get too much too soon, because you kind of learn by doing that's overstepping our bounds. We see what we're supposed to see. You'll know if you do something with it, but you have to look at the energy behind why you want to do something with it. Why it's important for you to tell the person what you saw. Because I would put it like this: if that person was supposed to see it, they would have seen it. And if they didn't see it, it's a good possibility that it was just something for you to know, something that might be coming for that person. And you might need to be there in some kind of capacity, and it's preparing you for it. It's always going to be about you. It's not going to be about the other people in the dream. You're being from your perspective. You might see something that looks very tragic for that person, but that's from your perspective, your role in that movie. You're the star in that. That's your movie. That's your dream. You're tapping into a reality where you're going to see it from your perspective. Even in that different dream reality, you're still seeing it from your perspective. It might look super freaking tragic, but if the other person dreamed it from their perspective, oh, well, maybe it's not that tragic, because they're going to go on and do something else. They might see it as a different type of dream, because everything traumatic that happens to our human always expands the soul in a sense. It allows you to get rid of the human programming more and then expand. Your soul can then expand more in the body. So that's why this stuff happens, for you to clear the sadness, the blame, the guilt, the judgment, the grief. All that stuff has to come up. Certain people trigger those certain things. So what you might look at as, well, that's something's really going to come for that person. They might have a dream where, they might see a lot of sunlight in the dream, because they're seeing it from they're seeing it from their higher perspectives, and you might be seeing it from a different perspective. So you have to be cognizant of the energy behind why you want to tell someone. And a lot of times we do tell people. I used to do it. I used to do it all the time. It's completely overstepping our energetic bounds, but until we do it a couple of times and realize that wasn't the thing to do, because it's usually never met with, people can say, oh, thanks for telling me. Nobody means that. They don't mean that. Especially if you're trying to tell them something that was difficult for you to watch in the dream state. Nobody is happy when you say that. It's kind of like, I have to tell you something. I really don't want to tell you this. And what's coming next is something you really don't want to hear. Because it's going to be something they're not ready to see in that light. And it's not our place to do it. We do it anyway until we learn, don't do it. So I've had a couple clients who've done it, and we have to kind of shift it around to see if it was you on the other end of it, would you want to hear about it? Not knowing 100%, because when you're still in that, you feel the need to tell someone about it, you're not in a high enough state to truly understand it, because you're still involved in wanting to tell somebody. So just keep that in mind too. If you feel the need to tell somebody, normally that's because your ego wants to do it. There's different reasons we do it. It might not mean you're not supposed to do it. You have to really set with that one. See what's going to come out of it behind wanting to do it. If that person's supposed to see it, they're going to see it. Focus more on your interaction in the dream. What were you doing? When I first got into dreaming, this is going to be kind of like a dream today, because it's going to be all over the place. When I first got into it, really heavy, back in probably 2012, 2013, maybe 2014. Look for markers in the dream, especially if you're into precognitive dreaming, and you want to look and see. Everyone dreams the future, everybody dreams the past. It's no point to doing that. Well, but there's no time, so you're kind of dreaming everything that's happening at the same time. But you might have emotional attachment to a lot of it, because it's like looking at somebody else's yearbook. You really don't give a shit, because you don't have the attachment to those realities. So a lot of them don't make sense. But there will be some that will feel more precognitive than others. So if a lot of times we don't feel like we dream the future, even though we're going to call it the future here because it just hasn't anchored here yet. It's happened somewhere else, so you couldn't see it. The minute you see it in your dream state, know it's possible. Anything's really possible. If you think of it, it's possible because you thought of it. It means it came in from some reality somewhere you couldn't have thought about it. So keep in mind, if you see it, that reality exists somewhere. We just got to get to it. That's why I did a video months and months ago about kind of living from that future state in a sense, whereas you see where you want to be and ask every day, what can I do today to get to that? That's why it's shown to you. So you know, I'm going there. Let's say you want to be a book writer, whatever it is for you. It's going to be different for everybody. If you want to be an author, you know, and you're like, what do I got to do today to do that? You know, what is my step today to get to that? It might not be actually writing a chapter of a book right now. That might not be what it is. It might be going to set at the ocean, going on a trip to the ocean to get your physical vibration up higher. It's usually not a linear one-to-one. A lot of the stuff I had to do to anchor in certain realities were not anything that made linear sense of why I had to do them. But I had to do them anyway. Because you kind of, once you ask the question and you open up the box and you get an answer, you need to go do it. And if you're not doing it, once again, we're the reason shit doesn't happen. We're the delay across space and time, if you want to get into time. So you're going to see stuff that just has an anchor here. That's why it feels futuristic, because it's not here yet. It's not here at this moment, so it feels like that. It feels kind of futuristic. It's not really here right now, so that feels like it's in the future. How do I get there? When could it possibly be here? This is where it's going to get a little wonky. I used to go a little bit more with this back in the beginning when I was really getting into my dreams. I'm going to share it, but I have tended to get away from some of the stuff as I've gotten more, my consciousness has increased. I've gotten away from some of the stuff, really looking at some, but I will say, I'm supposed to look at this stuff, it'll come in my mind to remember this stuff, you know? So keep in mind, it always moves, you know? So I would look at what age I was in the dream, you know, and what was I wearing? That's going to tell you a marker of a season. So pay attention. Are you got a coat on? You know, are there leaves on the trees? What are you excited about? Is it a different, you know, what's going on around you? That might be a marker for a time of year. This is stuff I used to really look at when I was trying to track how long I could dream out. Like, was it going to happen immediately? A lot of people don't think they dream the future because it's a latency effect. It takes too long for it to actually anchor here because you're not doing anything proactively to do it. Because in that level of consciousness, you're not able to really, you haven't really learned yet to connect. What do I got to do to bring it in? So you kind of let it come in more organically, even if it's something you didn't want to come in. Sometimes we'll look at something and go, I don't really want to do that reality. So how do I avoid one? Because really, when you're sleeping, you're looking through different realities. You're playing in and seeing which ones you want to happen here, which ones you don't. A lot of people say your soul's kind of going through it and saying, okay, let me experience that. Let me experience that. That's why a lot of stuff that happens, people are like, why would I pick that? Well, your human's not picking it. Your soul's picking it to clear out your human programming. You start clearing it out more on your own, you don't call forth the harsher things because we can't really bypass them. Eventually, I think I said this in my last video, and we talked about patterns and themes that we have and look at your thoughts and what you're creating in a sense of what you really believe, your human programming, your human themes. We usually get a lot of chances to kind of bail out of stuff, and if we're not bailing out in time, the whole reality is just going to crash down on top of us. Usually we knew it was going to come, but we weren't doing it. But in the beginning, which is whenever the beginning is for you, you're not really aware. You're subconsciously picking what you want to play in. You get more conscious, you can consciously pick what you're going to play in and pick the ones you like and clear the rest. I'll say that when I go to sleep, you reach a level of consciousness where you can clear all your timelines because you have so many I'm going to use the word bearing down, but I don't usually use that word, bearing down on you at one time. It's not just now. People are like, oh, I'm going to clear all my human shit. It's not just right now. You're clearing stuff from everywhere. Atlantis, Galactic, Lemuria, Egyptian, pick a timeline. You're clearing it. That's why it takes so long. That's why people who are really into the journey are like, it's so much to clear. Yeah, because you're clearing everything. It's not just one thing. Our human of consciousness want to talk about is just now. Akash. Well, which one do you want to clear? Your human Akash? Your Atlantic Akash? Your galactic Akash? Pick an Akash. You kind of know when you're clearing stuff, when you start you're about to do a big shift. I'm going to shift it for a minute, and then I think I'm going to wrap it up for the day. I am going to check my chat. Let me say this before. You'll know you're going to shift into a different vibration, a different reality. You're going to, shifting is shifting when you start to reminisce about old shit. When stuff comes up you haven't remembered since you were 5 years old, friends you haven't thought about in a long time, situations you haven't thought about in a long time, you're starting to shift. A lot of us will have a marker, and you'll start to figure out your awake markers. We talked earlier about your dream markers. You'll have different, I always know when I hear from this one friend, I'm about to do a massive shift. Because this person very rarely calls, and when they call, I'm like, oh, or I see the name of the person somewhere in a random way, and the name will pop out. I'm about to shift. But you'll have a marker before everything happens. You just start eventually. You can identify the marker because you've reached a level of consciousness where you remember those are the markers you set. It's kind of like future you telling you. It's like a Bill and Ted Circle K shit, okay? You'll get to where you'll be like, oh, that's a marker for me. Every time A happens, B happens. It's like on those old video games. Probably the new video games. I don't play the new video games, but as I say that on a gaming platform, but I'm gonna let that go. You'll notice that you'll start to notice different patterns. This happens, this happens. The old Pac-Man game used to have that. You knew eventually if you played these games enough, you knew it was going to happen because it was just on a loop. You know, so you memorize what was going to happen, and then you up level to a different game. Eventually you realize which way you got to go. Go out the window, go out the door, you got to do the trap door underneath. You kind of know how to get out of the to go on. And those things are probably some of the most important things you're going to learn, or not even learn, you're going to remember. You'll remember what your markers are. You'll start to say, every time I hear from this person, craziness ensues. This person is a marker for something. Ask the questions. Don't be too scared to ask the question. But know, if you're scared to ask the question, you got to look at why you don't want to know. Why don't I want to know the answer to this stuff? Why do I not want to open up to it? Because it's going to come knocking at some point. It's just when it's going to be your time to really look. You'll find you'll have a lot of chances along the way to start opening up. And then you kind of it gets revved up later on through different things. But I do want to check this because I was finding it a little bit easier to kind of, okay. I don't really have any specific questions. So I did have a very nice, new subscriber, or follower. So that's, thank you very much. Okay, so I think I'm going to end on that today. I think that's enough. So just be prepared. Ask to see what you want to see in the dream state. If you're trying to pick between two different things, one night ask one question. If I do, we can do it as just a job. I do road A, I take job A, how does that pan out? If I take job B, the next night, do job B, how does that pan out? Don't be too concerned if you can't remember exactly what happened in the dream. Look at how you feel about it the next day. If you wake up and you feel good, that'll tell you something. If you wake up and you don't feel good, I'll tell you something. Sometimes I'll have some dreams I wake up really upset, and I can but it's usually I do the second wake up technique where I'll wake up, and that's another technique some people will use. They'll set their alarm to wake up early and then go back to sleep for another hour to see if they can hit that hyponagalgic state. So they'll kind of go back to sleep and then try to hit it, where they can see a lot more. It's a very psychic state. When you hit that state, it's a very psychic state. So let me think. What was I gonna say? I hate it when that happens. Yeah. Sometimes I'll wake up and I'll be really upset. Sometimes it'll be like a really disturbing dream, which my human would think was disturbing, really distorted dream. I'm super upset when I wake up. If I go back to sleep, wake up again in a few hours, and I'm okay. I was just clearing that out of my reality. If I wake up and I'm still upset, I'll look at the dream a little bit closer. But usually it's a second wake up for me. If I'm still upset, or if I wake up in the morning, and you can kind of get where you can ask, am I just clearing something? But some of the stuff can be pretty heavy. That's why we get into that whole judgment discussion about, the human always wants a victim, and they want a hero, and they want someone to blame. That's just human programming. but we've been everything. If you've had a dream where you weren't murdering somebody in the dream, I'll be surprised, because we've all had that dream. At some point, you're hurting people, you're manipulating people. It's not that you might not be doing it in this reality, but there are realities where you did it because you've been everything. So it's really hard to judge others who play that role in this reality, because they're kind of taking a hit for humanity in a sense when you've played the role somewhere else. So this doesn't mean you have to, you can just see it from a different perspective, because everything you see is real. And it just doesn't have the impact so much because you're conditioned to not believe it. A lot of that's a human collective programming. The whole 3D reality is meant to keep you asleep. That's why it's there. It's built to keep you asleep. It's built to keep you asleep. So anything to discount the dream state is what's more publicly recognized, because that's what that collective does. That whole reality is to keep you in that matrix, in a sense, where they say, oh, don't pay attention to what you dream. It's just, you're just clearing whatever, but it doesn't really mean anything. It's true. Human only uses like 5% of their brain. The more conscious you get, the more you use, and then you start using all of it. And then wait when that happens, because you're surprised at what you can do, what you can see, how you know what's coming. So, okay, that's good. And I'm going to go back and listen to this and hope that once again, my dream one did not go wonky wonky. So everyone enjoy the day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.